Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all the little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live. So feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. Hey guys, let me know if you can hear me. Happy Christmas Eve. I see some of you. I just need to know if you can hear me. Inheritance is in the house, or was. Don't know what he's talking about. Deanna, good to see you. Dimple, MD77. Yes, thank you, Deanna. I appreciate it. I hope you guys are doing good. Yeah, can't believe it's almost Christmas. Have my father-in-law maybe cruising in the door at some point coming up from South Carolina. Kind of a crazy way of getting here, but what do you do? I'm trying to get him here for a few years now. So anyway, I don't know. If I sound a little raspy, it's because I am a little raspy, but I don't know if you guys can see this. This eye here. See that red business going on there? If I go like this, and then I go like that, you can probably see it. It's kind of, my family's saying I look like a lizard or something. I don't know what happened. It just became all red. Oh no. All right. So let's just see if there's any. Look, MD has mostly the questions. So let's just see what we get going on here. It might be a shorter than normal day. We'll see. Let's see. Dimple from Ohio. Dimple says, thanks for, let's see. Why are they not showing up? Oh, thanks for putting up with me as I learn to swim through this process. Oh yeah, that's how it is. I think my brain just works differently, and I have been accused more than once of overthinking everything. You and me both. That's just the way some of us think, so I wouldn't feel bad about it at all. But sometimes it's true. Sometimes people are like, all right, you're overthinking it. You have to just dumb it down sometimes, right? MD says, if someone has OCD as one of their disabilities, how would they fill out the 3373 for this? So you have OCD. You got to learn how to sum things up because they give you a small space for a reason. Right? So I wouldn't do 20 pages of specific intrusive thoughts. You're not going to get them to be looking at any of the functional limitations that result from those OCD thoughts. The substance, the details of what you think about is less important as what does it prevent you from doing that would therefore interfere or cause you to do that would interfere with a work-related task. And honestly, OCD, when it's severe, is very interfering with work-related tasks. It can prevent you from doing a simple task because you have to go and do that OCD thing. And this is oftentimes, if it's true if it's intrusive thought, I think, but it's also true if it's a compulsion, whether it's the hand washing, which is what people always think about. I've had OCD folks, one in particular, she'd have to ruminate something in her head every time she saw a particular word or phrase. And given her job, it was a little intrusive because a lot of her job was reading and editing and stuff like that. So it became obviously something she couldn't do that job anymore. And it did interfere with the next job that she got with an accommodation through a special entity of sorts because she had to really, I don't even know how she did it. I know it was very accommodated and there were issues and it was part-time because of that. And, but the employer was designed to be hiring people who wanted to work but couldn't do it in the normal way or the normal set of hours or anything like that. So that's why she was still there or at the newer job. So just try to think about, you could, it's the end task interference, MD, that's the important thing again. So if you have intrusive thoughts, then talk about how often in a day they're going to take you off task from even a simple thing you're trying to do. Let's say you're supposed to be doing the dishes and it makes you have to go do something else or makes you, I don't know. I'm sure everybody's different. Let's say you're doing dishes and then the intrusive thoughts come to your hands stop and you just start thinking about the improvement. So does your activity stop because your brain can't do both? And if it's compulsions, what happens? You have to leave you're off task from the job because you have to leave because of this compulsion. That's what you might want to touch on a few. You could touch on one or two and say there are many others. You don't have to, I don't want to say bore them with the details, but the point is they can't be taking 3 years to work on your case. They have 500 of the cases that you have to work on at the same time. So you have to give them the important crux of the matter and then leave the details. Those are going to be in the records. That's who you talk to your doctor. This is an interesting question from MD. If a person lists suicidal ideation on the 3373 or tells a CE examiner this, would the applicant be at risk to be put on a safety hold. I can't speak from like a definitive rulemaking capacity here, MD, but first of all, if there are suicidal ideations, they're going to be in your medical records and mental health records that the SSA gets. SSA doesn't put you on a hold. If they thought you're immediately going to be trying to kill yourself, then I think they could, in theory, alert somebody. And I'm not sure how they'll go. I've never had something like that, but they're going to see them in the records anyway. So the fact that you say you have ideations to a CE examiner or on your 3373, I see that all the time. People discuss the fact they've had suicidal thoughts, and that's a whole different thing than a suicidal plan. And I see that being what appears to me to be the differentiation. If someone said, I'm going to go kill myself in the next week, I think that would be a big ding, ding, ding. But if they're just talking about ideations and not a concrete plan, they often say in those kind of records, has had suicidal ideations, but no plan. So if that helps you. And I hope you don't have ideations much longer. I hope you get over that. But I do think that's normal. I think probably everyone has had one, even the healthiest of people. It's just more of a thing you consider, but not doing, just like, I wonder if, you know what I mean? Kids, adults, everybody. I don't want to put your... Mike Page is in the house. Merry Christmas, Mike. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope everyone has a good one, regardless of what you like to do at this time of year. Thank you, Dimple. Okay, let's see. Inheritance is now babbling about things that I'm going to get rid of. Please don't use this platform, Inheritance, for your own diatribes on your political preferences, okay? That's not what it's here. Okay. Are there any questions, guys? I know we're a small group today. Anybody? Anybody have anything they want to talk about that's actually real and not feelings? Because we don't do feelings, we do actual evidence here. Okay. All right. Inheritance. Gotta go on timeout. Okay. So I don't think we have a lot of questions, guys. Everyone's probably getting ready for the holidays. I'm looking forward to my father-in-law. Hi, Fredabug. Good to see you. Getting up here. We don't have a GPS with him, so we don't know. My family's all on Life 360, so I always know where my kids are with my car and where they are. And it can tell us if they're speeding. Allow them to use the cars as soon as they get a driver's license. But the helicopter part is like, are you speeding with my car? Did you ask to take it over to your friend's house? You know, that kind of thing. But so my father-in-law, who's in his mid-70s, he's driving up, and it's been a really long time. Every time he's going to come up, something comes up, and he can't do it, or yeah. And this time he left like 24 hours ago, and we're going to just drive like 4 or 5 hours, and with bathroom break, and stay in a motel. It's not like you can't afford to stay in a motel. So I don't think that was the choice. I don't know. I think it was like straight through, but maybe just parking in parking lots. I don't know, because it's been like 24 hours, but we'll see. He should be here this afternoon, and it'll be interesting. Okay. So, Fredabug has a hearing on January 13th. I have a hearing that day also. Dimple says, I heard it mentioned about the SSA working through cases more quickly. Yeah, they just put out some sort of report. I was going to do a quick share on it. I don't know that it's that much different than the one from July. I guess maybe it is, as an average. And I will say, I don't know if I'd mentioned this. I feel like I just talked about this, but maybe it was with a different group or maybe on a video. But one of my colleagues in an email listing thing we have was aggrieved at the poor speed in which this rural area she works in is handling in-person appointments for people. They can't get through on the phone. They need appointments. They got to go over a mountain ridge to get to the office. It's like a nightmare. And that therefore the discussion of speed increases must be false. And I chimed in that I don't think it's false, because we have seen it. However, when you're coming from negative 500 and now you're up 25%, you're still, well, let's say you're up 20%, you're still negative 400. So like the improvement doesn't mean it's all good and dandy. And that's an average too. So when you have a 25% improvement, some places it's 0 improvement, some it's 99% improvement, and somewhere the average in the country is 25%. So is it great that there's finally improvement? Yes, it's been years and years. Is it a utopian world? Far from it. So my only hope is that we continue the improvement. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that more technology available services are there. So the people that would be calling and waiting on the phone or clogging up the phone or seeking an in-person no longer have to do that because they're getting their problem solved just through technology and online and all that kind of business. So that leaves the in-person stuff more available to those that can't do online. Like I would imagine that some very indigent people might not be able to do it, or some people that are not just cognitively able, like maybe an elderly person who has never learned about the online system and how to get around online. It definitely gets harder. I think as you get older, if you were not born and raised with it, my particular age group, we weren't born and raised with it, but we got it in early adulthood. So we've kind of gravitated, not as good as the people, our youngers who were born and raised with it, but it's thankfully better than, say, the 80-year-olds. And that's why it's always impressive to me when I see a 75, 80-year-old person whizzing through and doing everything that makes their case with us all the faster, But anywho, so I just put in my 2 cents about, listen, it's really easy to look at one person's, your own, and not see the rest of the, when we're in our own bubble, we only see what we see. If we're not researching and learning about what's going on everywhere else, our own perspective is going to be very narrow. And I think that's what this particular person might have had a bit of a narrow view because it's all she sees, I think it was a she, in this one particular view she has. And I don't know, maybe not a numbers person, but when you're doing something with percentages and averages, you have to know that there's going to be the higher and the lower. So there's like stellar results, and then there's lower results, and the average is somehow 25, right? And we're coming from a severely guttered position in terms of speed with the SSA. So the improvement doesn't mean we're out of the gutter yet. It just means that we're climbing, Mike Page says, thank you very much for having us today. On top of everything else, I would follow up on a request they made to get their file sent. They made to get their file sent to them. Okay, Mike, I'm not sure I get that, but maybe you'll be saying it down below. Dimple says, is there a way to find out how many disability cases are in my state? I think there is. I think there is by state. I don't really look at it because it doesn't change my job. So I don't know where it is, but I just get the sense that there is, because they do put out some tables. Got to do a little digging, and it would be at the SSA.gov site, I think, embedded in there someplace. Bug says his or her ALJ has a 76% win rate, award rate. That's quite high. Good for you. Dimple says, I saw a video you just posted on the members only side. Made me wonder what Ohio looks like. Oh, you could probably chat that and find out. By the way, guys, when she says members only side, that's just that they get it first. Because we don't like to do more than a video a day, if I had 3 come out in a particular day, it's just because a lot was going on, stuff to share, they can only come out one at a time. So for members, that's not subscribers, that's members, they get access to those right away because they're not open to the public. They're not bogging down people's subscription feed, which is what I try to avoid. So when she says members only, that's what it means. It doesn't mean that the members, no one else can be allowed to see that and it's withheld from you. It's not. It's going to come out on a schedule so that you're not bombarded by my raspy voice and my scary mug at times and my crazy eye. Dimple says, I was thinking that AI might be doing a bit more with initial reviews. Well, there's been AI in everything for a long time. For instance, you have a medical impairment that could be a compassionate allowance, except maybe you worded it wrong and you didn't put down the diagnosis that is included in the compassionate allowance list word for word, but your other descriptors indicate it might be. I wouldn't be surprised if AI will alert them to look at this. This could be a compassionate allowance. So I think it's going to be in the favorable, more so than the unfavorable. Although it could, in theory, and this is not new. This is not new. Automation has been around in the SSA and everywhere else for years and years. It's just that it might be a little bit more useful now. And yes, of course, if we're going to talk about the dangers, we've got those too. People marrying their AI friends. It's a little weird. Hey, Patriots is in the house. 1776. Is it normal for a pediatrician to look over your medical and make a decision on your disability? They don't make the disability decision. I think you might be talking about either a CE or a medical expert internally, or a medical expert at your ALJ hearing. And it's not unusual for a person that's in a different specialty. It's just because they don't have enough that are willing to do it because it doesn't pay that well, is my guess. But all it requires is an MD. It doesn't matter what specialty it is. It could be a family doctor. I don't think it's that normal. We've had OBGYNs giving these things to men, because they're still MDs in the whole entire sense. They just have an additional specialty of what they've got. So that's where that's coming from. Patriots saying this is what happened to me on reconsideration. Yeah, it's not unusual, but they don't make the ultimate. This is what they say. They don't make the ultimate determination. The adjudicator does. Obviously, whatever their opinion is on your RFC is going to the adjudicator, and he's going to not substitute his own non-medical judgment for the doctor's medical judgment. So in essence, what he says is such a big crumb of the cake of the decision, the determination. So you could say, in substance, he is making the determination, and I would have to agree with that. Technically, he's not. Technically, it's the adjudicator. So let's say the doctor comes with a opinion, and the adjudicator then sees that, oh, after the doctor got the stuff to review, we got this big, amazing, indicative, substantial medical record in, and now I don't know that if I can trust that doctor's thing, because now we've got this that would maybe shed a totally different light. Maybe then he doesn't even have to go with it. Maybe he has to get it resubmitted for another medical opinion. Those are questions, but I suspect that might be true. Mike says, how would one follow up on a request for their file after writing to them? I use the form you guys said. I'd call him, and I would fax it to him maybe a couple times. You send it certified, so you have your green card back. You could also, if it's been more than, say, 2 weeks or something like that, maybe reach out to your senator, federal, not state. State might try it out though too, but they don't have the same clout. So yeah, maybe reach out to your congressperson, your representative, or your senator, and ask them to say, hey, I have a right to this under the third, and they haven't responded yet. Can you please ask them to? Something you could do. And you can make a phone call. And remember, honey, not vinegar. I always just say, I know you guys are really busy. Really? Oh my God, look at your shirt. Talus, you're terrible. All right. Any let me take that off. Any other questions, guys? We got one. Patriots. What does PRT assessment mean on the, that's the psychological aspect when they tried to determine what the diagnoses are that are evidenced in the file for mental health and what the residual capacities to do work-related tasks that are implicated by mental capacities. So someone could be moderately limited in interacting with coworkers, or they could be extremely limited in interacting with coworkers. Moderately doesn't get us anywhere, guys. It's got to be marked. Everyone says it differently. Or extreme. AMD's got a jury notification. Jury trial, jury hearing, jury trial, jury duty. I have always wanted to sit on a jury for the entire case. And the few times I've been called in, I've always known they're going to boot me once they find out I'm a lawyer. And I always thought, that's pretty stupid, though. I guess because they don't think they can manipulate us as much. I don't know, because juries tend to be the audience for theater, right? The lawyers are doing a lot of theatrics. It's differently, by the way, than an ALJ hearing where there's no theatrics. An ALJ wouldn't appreciate it. There's no jury to impress or to manipulate or to dramatize in front of. Freddie Mejia? Hi. If I'm 53, how the grid rules with light work. 53. If you can do light work, you lose on the grid rules. You have to prove you cannot do light work. When you're 55, even if you could do light work, you can still be found disabled because you got to meet the other prongs. There's always like at least 3 prongs for any grid. If you meet the other 2 prongs, and you could, even though you could do light work at 55, you could still prevail in your case. Incidentally, weren't we hearing all this fear about they're going to take away the grids for 50 to 55s or something? Wasn't that the big scuttlebutt a couple months ago? Everybody was asking about it, and I kept saying, all I'm hearing is the fearmongers haven't seen it yet. I know they're supposed to be coming up with a new analysis since like 2015 or something, or whatever it was, 2020, trying to update the vocational aspect, like get some of those jobs out of there that don't exist, that people are being held to the standard of. When the job doesn't even exist, how can you say you could do that job, therefore you lose? They're trying to update that, but all the clickbaiters were trying to get in there. Hey, they're going to take away your da-da-da. And I said, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that from any reliable source whatsoever within the SSA or the federal government whatsoever. So I still haven't heard it, guys. Yes, we have a few more days left of December, so we'll see. They have been throwing around ideas to adjust that since at least 2003, and at times they have adjusted it. So, but I haven't really seen anything to suggest that now. So I'm not terribly worried. Although, yes, could it happen? It could happen. It's been threatened for 20 years, something years. But worrying about it is not going to solve the problem. I think the better idea is to figure out how you're going to adapt if that does become an issue. All right. But not borrowing trouble before we need it, not crossing the bridge before we get to it, all that kind of stuff. Hey, Glamour Girl, if a diagnostic test was denied by insurance before DLI, then appealed, then approved after DLI, can it count towards SSD decision? In theory, I mean, they can look at anything. Sometimes diagnostic tests today show things that clearly did not originate today. So if that's the case, and obviously if they prescribed it beforehand, there were symptoms that made them think that a diagnosis of so-and-so might actually exist. Let's take the test and see if it does. And then I would make the argument that that is just they wanted this test done. It was just through the bureaucracy of insurance that it took so long, but it does in fact confirm that the symptoms from before the DLI were in fact caused, likely caused by this. I would make the argument. Sometimes you'll get a judge that'll flatly say no, but maybe that's an appealable issue that they can't just flatly say no. They have to look at it and say, no, I'm not going to correlate it to that because maybe it's something they have to articulate better. If so, then it would be an appealable point. But I would definitely make the argument. Better yet, change your DLI, Glamour Girl. You guys know how I rant and rave about that. Don't have a remote DLI. Do something minimal, accommodated to get those credits back. If I have multiple doctor appointments, how can I answer the jury duty? How does everybody else with multiple doctor appointments go to jury duty? Everybody has doctor appointments. Everyone over the age of 30. Otherwise we'd have no juries if that was the standard. What can be a standard is if your doctor says to the jury duty supervisor, whatever they're called, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, please excuse him or her from jury duty because he has an extensively impaired spine, and the sitting without being able to move around and get up and stretch would be extremely detrimental to him and distracting to the other jurors and possibly everybody else in the courtroom. Something like that. But, having a busy schedule, it's not going to fly. It's just not going to fly. If you were going to be hospitalized, and I shouldn't say it would never fly, so I should clarify, generally it's not going to fly. If you have kidney dialysis every day, yeah, your doctor can simply write a note getting you excused from jury duty. He has to have this dialysis, and I wouldn't imagine that they're not going to grant it. But just doctor's appointments that we're able to negotiate, move around. Sometimes they can be in the evening. Jury duty goes till 4. Sometimes this doctor's office are open till 6. You know what I'm saying? Good afternoon, Glamour Girl. Jenny M is in the house. It was a proposal to get rid of grid rules, at least for 50 to 55. There was no proposal, but that's fun. But I read the idea was paused in late November. Yeah, there was no, Danny, do your research. There was no official source whatsoever that came out with that. Zero. All the articles, I know because me and a group that I work with, we extensively try to dig to see for every article, where are they going? Where did they get that from? And we tested every single citation they had, and they were all just circular. Johnny said it. And Johnny said, but Mary said it. And Mary says, and Alex said it. And Alex says, and Alex's report talks about Johnny. And now it's always a planned thing. This is how the media works. We dig to find out, is there an authoritative source? Because if it is, I want to know. These are my people it's going to affect. It's my livelihood I'm going to affect. I want to know. But I don't want to be played either. And there's been a lot of playing for a number of years. So I just don't play it. I dig. I share what I know. People can take it or leave it. And again, it doesn't mean it won't necessarily change later. Like I said, it's been a proposal by some unnamed people for the last 20-something years. So you can either jump to the fiddle or refuse to. And I refuse to. I know how to do my research. And I have people that are better than me that I work with that do even better research. So I always back up everything I can with them when possible, when they have the time to look at it. And we're all really helpful to one another. These are not people in the SSA world in particular. I'm probably the main SS person, but we have journalist experts, journalism, where they know how to deep dive into the sourcings. It's pretty amazing. So significant opposition, right? And it's never been a formal proposal, and that is the same way it's been going on for years. Danny, they enjoy playing us, and a lot of people get played, and you see it all over the place. You see the clickbait, you see the big highfalutin titles on YouTube videos and articles and everything else. And then when you read into the substance, you find out that not a single one of them had any kind of authoritative source in which to claim that. It was all this cycling echo chamber stuff of the people that want to put the fear in. And a lot of times it's for political reasons. We all know that. It's for votes. Midterms were just here. Come on. You know, let's not, I don't want anybody here to be stupid, right? Or to do a stupid thing because of the fear that others are going to put in you. It's just offensive and it's insulting. We're all adults, you know, to be treated like that, I think is disgusting. Salicante. First, thanks for the information. Second, I got an approval message on step 4. Woo woo. Do I wait for the letter mail or do I start doing the next procedure? Why don't you wait for the mail? Calling them for what? What are you going to call them about? Unless the letter said for you to call them, but it probably didn't, right? Hey, Christina. Good to see you. DUS. I have an SSI app in process. I sent in the adult function report almost 2 weeks ago, but haven't heard anything since. And the app is still, yeah, I would expect it to still be there. They're gathering medical records at step 3. There is no usual time frame to get a decision. If your doctors take 6 months to get in your medical records, it could take 6 months. Or the adjudicators say, hey, I'm only getting them 3 months and we have to cut the cord at some point and just issue the denial if we don't get enough medical evidence. So if you're self-representing DW, I would make sure that the adjudicator has received all the medical records you told them about. If you have new medical providers or new visits, you tell the adjudicator that. They're not mind readers. So you really have to keep in touch with them. I'll be letting them know every time I had a visit. I'd probably be that anal. You know what I'm saying? So, but now you just sent in your function report. They're still gathering medical records. This is not necessarily ending anytime soon. Hello, this is RD. Hi, RD. Hello from California. Happy holidays, everyone. And you too. So Conte says, thanks again. Makes sense to wait for the letter mail. Yeah. Like what? Why put any work on yourself? And plus that person is probably not going to know anything either because the letter hasn't been generated yet, right? From whatever office would be generating it. All right. How we doing, guys? Anything else? Anything? Well, I hope you guys have a great Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So I guess I'll see you next Wednesday, right? I don't think I have any. What's the date next Wednesday? Next Wednesday is this. Oh no, wait. Oopsie. The 31st, right? Yeah, I'll be here. Yeah, I should be up in all the subsequent Wednesdays, barring any unforeseen emergency. Happy holidays, Danny. All right. I'm going to call it a day, guys. It's been short and sweet, but you know, we don't have to stay here if there's not a lot of questions. Everyone's busy with the holidays, right? And yeah, Mike Pace, you too. Gotta go, but he says, gotta go, but God bless everybody with a beautiful, healthy, happy Christmas and New Year. And I couldn't agree more. Michelle M., good to see you. All right, guys, Happy New Year. And yeah, I'll see you at 12 o'clock for our dailies and next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a very Merry Christmas, guys. Thank you again for always being here. I appreciate it.